Hi, my name is Mark Sanchez. I'd like to introduce a band called Sasha. For the next half hour, I'd like for you to enjoy them. It's headed by Laura Paloma. She has a publishing contract with Multimedia Music, Hologram Records, and she's doing a showcase at the Fine Line for Atlantic Records. Please enjoy the next half hour. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a Monday night at the Fine Line. Polygram International presents. Get ready to rock. Let's do it!
Best
a knife that cuts. I know you're gonna lie me. Your lies are poison, crying that need me. Honey, you just think too much. 'Cause I know that if I surrender to a deadly touch, you would steal my heart away. I feel the danger when we're near. You're a thief in the house of love. I will not give in to the fear. Thief in the house of love. I will not break. I will not crack. 'Cause you're a thief in the house of love. You are the devil dressed in black. You're a thief in the house of love. Now you don't know who you are, what you're doing, where you're going, what the hell is the venue I'd betray, the crime you've been concealing from me. I know you've tried to make me pay. It's a story, but I still hear you promising devotion. Honey, you just brought me blind. But I know if I surrender for one final time, you would steal my heart away. I feel the danger when we're near. Deep in the house of love, I'll bring it, sing it to the midnight. Sing it deep in the house of love. I'll bring it, will they dare? You're deep in the house of love. You are the devil dressed in black. Will they dare in the house of love? Oh, all right. Minneapolis, how y'all doing tonight? We're starting the week off right. All right. We're gonna funk it up just a little bit here. Bass. Yeah, that's right. Jason, get funky. I see you. You secret agent, you. Give it up. Oh yeah. Yeah. Come on, baby. Yeah, come on. Get up on this.
Hi, my name's Mark Sanchez. I'm your host for Cititalk. Cititalk's a show where we're going to talk about men's issues, social and political issues, also deal with areas of human development, and also spirituality, from Christianity to Native American spirituality. Also tonight I'd like to introduce Ellen Oestricher. And Ellen is the editor and publisher of Stepping Up magazine. She also has put on seminars and workshops in spirituality and human growth. Ellen, would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I don't even know where to start. I guess mine has been a real growth path, and so that's kind of what I've been trying to do now through both my newspaper and then in any talks and things that I'm involved with. I had been involved in the corporate world quite heavily, and that had been the environment that I had been brought up in, and had come to believe that that's where it was at, and quickly found out that that was not where it was at for me, and started experiencing a lot of health issues and things like that, and decided to start doing some of my own growth, and broke away from there, and then have just been doing a lot of growing and learning and sharing what I've learned with other people.
And that's the focus of our show tonight. I'd like to bring up areas where people might find an interest to them that they could grow and learn from some of our experiences also. And one thing we've talked about is the way people limit themselves in their lives by their own thoughts. And maybe we can talk a little bit about that and how to overcome that self-talk that people tend to put themselves down with and limit themselves.
Okay. I guess just having said what I did about my background makes me sort of think of that process that I was going through at that time of wanting to leave that corporate environment, coming out of a place that was very secure, very safe for me, and trying to figure out how I was going to do that on my own. At the time that was all occurring, I had recently been divorced, so that it was really on my own. And I remember thinking that I was locked in and that there was nothing else that I could do, that I had these 20 years worth of experience doing what I was doing, and that was the only thing that I could do. And through a lot of things that happened to me, I was able to figure out that I was limiting myself just simply by my beliefs. And I did bring along a little example. It's something that I've used in some of my talks that I think is kind of a way for people to actually be able to experience how we do typically tend to limit ourselves.
Okay.
I think it's something that is such a part of old messages and tapes that we've been taught over the years and that we've been brought up with, that most of the time we don't even realize that we're doing it.
Okay.
This example, like it says at the top, the purpose here is to draw 4 straight lines, each connected to the one before, to connect those dots together. In other words, you can't take the pencil off of the pad of paper.
Okay. Now for me, I see no way of being able to connect those. And I'm real interested to see how this would be done.
Well, it's kind of fun to give people, we don't have as much time tonight, but to give people time to just try to play with it and actually take the pencil to the paper and experience what it's like to try to accomplish this. And what typically happens then is when I show them how to do it, you really get that feel for how limiting we are within our own minds.
Okay.
So if you just try to kind of think about how you might do it, and just take a second to really try to figure out how you'd put all those dots together, and then I'll show you how to do it.
Okay, well, I've thought a little bit about it, and I don't know.
Okay, let me give it a try here.
Okay.
Not sure I'm at the right angle here, but obviously can't draw a straight line.
Okay.
And the whole point there is that people see it after it's done and say, well, of course. But what we see when you first see those dots in that formation is you see a perfect little square there. And
Something
you don't
impossible.
realize you can go out beyond the bounds of it and the limits. And that's really what it's all about, is we have to start to understand that we can go outside of the bounds and the limits that have been put on us in the past and then grow.
So in other words, what we think of ourselves, if we have limited ourselves by our thoughts, that this is not, that we can get beyond that we can work through these things and grow and develop as a human being.
Right. And a lot of it just keeps going back to that belief system and the old messages that we've been fed. I mean, throughout the different generations, I think each generation has been given different messages of, you know, the only way to get ahead is to work 80 hours a week. Well, maybe that's true, maybe it's not. And I think the point is, though, is that we don't stop and question it. We just automatically assume that that's because how my grandfather did it and my father did it, and so I have to do it that way. And what we need to do is to take some of those beliefs and start to adapt them to our lifestyle and what we're doing and what we're living and make them work for us. And when we do that, leave ourselves totally open. You know, just say, I'm not going to limit it in any way.
What are some other things that you feel society tells us or limits us with?
Oh,
Gets
goodness.
passed on to us.
I think the ones that are probably that people relate to most are work related. You know, about having to work harder and having to be sharper than the other guy, and you know, the specific way you go about it. I think also you hear a lot about the fact that that you have to put your career first, things like that. And I think we're starting to see more and more of a trend of people saying that isn't necessarily so. I think that there's definitely messages given in every aspect of our life, whether it be religion or politics, you know, all those things you're not supposed to talk about. I would think that if we look at any area of our life where we're feeling some discomfort, we're going to find some messages there that are not working for us.
Okay. So the indicator for an individual would be if they experience stress or maybe sadness or depression.
Right.
Things like that.
I have a personal philosophy that life isn't supposed to be hard. And I guess I can kind of tell when I'm not living the proper way by how hard my life is. And if I'm really having to struggle and to do things that I don't like and things seem like there's such an effort and always working against me, chances are it's because I'm fighting against some belief within myself.
I agree. I've learned personally also that life can be more happy than what I used to live.
Definitely.
I personally myself limited myself in a lot of ways, and I have learned to be a more happy person by not by monitoring what I allow myself to think and what I tell myself. You know, from little things it could be I'm not smart enough, or
Definitely.
or I'm not educated enough, or things like that. And getting beyond that, going beyond that barrier, and developing myself, I've learned to live a lot happier life.
Yeah.
through
A lot of
different
times
ways.
it takes going back to some of your childhood messages and uprooting those, which can be really tough. You know, if you've had a parent that was dealing with some of their own issues and gave you that message that you're not smart enough, that's real
Right.
difficult to get yourself programmed, to hear yourself saying that and say, no, I'm not going to buy into that anymore. I'm going to change that. And
Well,
that, I
there's-
think, is the real key, is to catch those messages and then twist them around to what works for us.
There's a lot of things that kids learn in our society about that create that negativeness.
Yeah.
We have a really stressful society. Some people's home situations aren't so good. Also, we pick up a lot of negative things in school. And even when we get older into the workplace, we learn a lot of things that hold us
There's
back.
been quite a few studies done where they've attached monitors to children for a period of time, and then they've counted how many negative as opposed to positive reinforcements they get throughout the day. And all of those studies, it's phenomenal the number of negative messages kids get. And some of that, I think, may go back to the fact that we as adults are not living a happy life because we're living under a lot of those old belief systems and putting limits on ourselves too, and so we just naturally pass that on. There's a law, I guess you'd call it, that says that mental energy directs physical energy. And it's one that has actually been proven scientifically also, but it's one that I truly believe in. And I think that when we're walking around with all that negativity around us, and we're having those negative thoughts, we're going to end up with negative results. And that's what it really comes down to. And it gets back to changing that self-talk. You know, the idea of affirmations is real big right now. And I think there's a lot of value in that's a good way. First you have to identify what those messages are, and then to just say, okay, well, I've identified it, doesn't do you anything. You have to start doing something like an affirmation so that you can replace that old tape with a new one, and then continue to run it until that new one seems as comfortable as the old one was.
So first you have to identify what the thoughts are that you're limiting yourself with, and then you would say an affirmation to
a lot of people have had success with that. Yeah, I guess I try not to say that there's any one way to do it. That's certainly a way that has helped me, is to catch myself and put a different message in, a positive one that works well for me.
So something like, for example, I mentioned before, not being smart enough, or thinking that one's not smart enough or educated enough. A person could do something tangible, like maybe taking some night classes, going to school, getting into a mentorship, something like that, or getting into the workplace and gaining some experience. But the key there is not stopping when a person feels held back by or is held back, but getting beyond that point and working through that and growing and developing and learning from that experience.
Right. That it keeps coming back to this idea of the limits, and I think that is a big part of it, is that we need to be able to get to a position where we catch ourselves from saying, oh, but I can't because of. And just one of the things that I think works real well is to say, if you could do anything you wanted to, what would it be? Or if in this situation, you know, I could behave anyway or treat it anyway, how would I do it? And let your mind be creative. Let it really imagine and go with it. And then look at the individual ideas. It's like we cut ourselves off before we even start. In fact, I had read a study recently where they were talking about testing on creativity. And they had tested children, I think they started the testing at age 5. And when they tested them, they found out that out of that group, 90% of them had tested very high on their creative abilities. And then that group, when they tested them at age 7, only 10% of them were as creative as those initial readings. By the time those people got to their mid-40s, it was down to 2%.
So what do you think were the factors that brought those percentages down?
Oh, I think there's more factors than I could list, but I think it's a combination of our society, of our family units, of the things that are going on in the world at the time, you know, each individual's personal experiences. But the end result is that, I mean, we were given this wonderful tool at birth, this creativity, this ability to create, and by the time we've reached our adult years, it has just been squelched. I mean, it's down to 2%.
Well, I agree. I just turned 30 a while back, and I realized, I looked back to how I felt when I was a teenager and when I was in my prime. But I felt not just physically in my prime, but also mentally and emotionally. And through my 20s, getting into the job market, a lot of stresses and life situations, traumas happened, and I felt that I had started to limit myself, and a lot of, basically it was stress had taken its toll on me. And I wasn't that open person. I wasn't fully energetic as I used to be, and so I've been trying to get back to that point, or to redevelop that in myself, to relax, to get through some of these stresses, to deal with certain issues, and so I don't become
old. I mean, when you think about
exactly.
it, isn't that part of, I firmly believe that this has a lot to do with the aging process, because like you say, when you're young, you have all of this energy and this excitement, and the world is open to you, and you've got all of this stuff in front of you, because you haven't learned all of those limits that society and that your family and that every place that you're around is trying to put onto you. And as you advance in your years, I think more and more of that comes on, and it's like all of this stuff put on your shoulders and you're weighted down.
Right.
And I firmly believe that when we can open ourselves up, really be unlimited as to what we think we can do, that we're also going to be able to stay younger, and that our lives are going to be happier for us too.
Right. So it's effectively dealing with the stress in our lives and not letting that get us down or hold us back, or staying in a constant state of stress, which I think a lot of people do, and it's an easy rut to get into.
Yep.
And it's learning how to get out of that rut and letting that whole energy, as I described, happen again.
There's a phrase that somebody I know uses, and they talk about, instead of managing stress, let's get away from stress. And I think that that's part of it, is that we have all kinds of seminars on stress these days. And they always talk about managing it. I don't want to manage it. I want to be completely away from it. And I think that that's really what we need to start to work towards.
Yeah, that sounds real familiar to some things I've experienced too, where I've decided, there's a thing too of, if you can get into a rut of stress or negative actions or consequences or something that seems to be holding you back, is deal with the issues that are keeping you in that place, and then you kind of, I found that I won't be the magnet that attracts me to those kind of issues again. Therefore, in the future, they won't hold me back anymore, that I can get beyond those things and live a more peaceful life. It's kind of learning from experience and not getting back into that same rut. I've kind of got a saying, I don't want certain things to mess with my serenity.
Yes.
And I've learned that. It took me to get up into my 30s to learn it, though. But it's
glad you learned it
been
now.
very helpful to me. Well, we've got about a minute here left before we go into a PSA. Is there anything else you'd like to say about this?
Boy, put me in a time clock here.
Well, I'd like to say to the people viewing that if you find yourself limited by your thoughts or circumstances, that there is a way out of that you don't have to live the same kind of life that you're living, that if you work on things, eventually over time that you can overcome these and live a happier, more peaceful life.
I wonder if one of the keys too isn't, because we hear a lot from people about going back and finding out what went wrong and dealing, looking at it. The thing that we really need to do then is to move on. Find something positive to replace it, and then get on with our life.
You're right. So in the next segment here, after, let's talk about what you mentioned before, mental energy directs physical energy, and how we can get into living better lives because of our thoughts, and how we can use that to focus and visualize on certain goals that we've picked out for ourselves.
Okay.
Okay?
Alrighty.
And let's go to the PSA.
Today on Mental Health Minute, we're going to talk about comparing. Most of us do it. We compare the way we look with how someone else looks. We compare the things we have against the things other people have. What happens to us and to our mental health when we do that? The fact is, it separates us into lesser than or better than based on physical, intellectual, or material things. We lose perspective. We fail to see ourselves as equals in dignity and worth with the whole human family. Good mental health calls for us to be who we really are, not a copy of another person. The next time we become aware that we're comparing, let's pause and let it go. It's important that we make the decisions for changes in our lives as independent decisions, without relationship to feeling inferior or superior to somebody else. This is Dewey Renner. Next on Mental Health Minute, we're going to talk about loneliness. Join us then.
Hi, I'm Mark Sanchez. Welcome back to Cititalk. Again, we have Ellen Oestricher, editor and publisher of Stepping Up magazine. which deals with human development and spirituality. And now we're going to follow up from our first segment, and we're going to talk about how mental energy or thoughts direct physical energy. And I've noticed a lot with myself as I dealt with the things that went through my mind, the self-talk, the things I told myself. Then after that, after I started becoming aware of my thoughts and stopping the negative ones and putting positive ones in their place, there's a step beyond that, and that is taking and continuing those positive thoughts and having that become the propelling force in my life. Instead of it being a negative force, it became a positive force. There, I think a person can get into, you need then to find a focus, what direction you want to go to, making a goal, setting a goal, following that, focusing, becoming clear with things, clarifying, and also how to, I think, also lay a good foundation for that positive energy to take effect and root by being, basically there needs to be some relaxation in there. There has to be, tension has to be gotten out of the system. You have to get rid of the stress, basically, that the body is feeling, so that these things can take a deep seat.
What you're really talking about there is looking at us as whole human beings. I mean, the stress is the physical part, the thoughts are our mental part. I mean, the serenity becomes our spirituality, and that's an area that I really believe is part of the problem for us these days, is that sometimes we have this tendency to forget that we are a whole human being, and we shouldn't just be looking at one aspect of ourselves. Yeah.
I think there's a great movement going towards developing the whole human being. There's a lot of programs that are starting to work on developing people into being able to become that whole person, the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. And I think that our society in its evolution is starting to realize the value of the individual person and the necessity for individuals to be able to gain their full potential and not be inhibited by various things that may block a person that they got from growing up in their childhood. And I think our society in whole has focused a lot on development, industrial development, getting out working 9 to 5, where the end result was what a person wanted to focus on, the work itself, or developing a corporation or something like that. Also, I think now we're realizing that we have to develop the human and have to give the human more credit as being not just another number or something like that, that each individual has to be well developed enough to be able to reach their potential, and therefore we're going to have a much better workforce, a much healthier society, physically, emotionally. I think we're also going to see a lot of social problems decline, crime, alcoholism, when people start getting away from those things that have tended to block our society. I see it also as kind of a normal evolution in our society, that we've kind of gone through this industrial age, and now I see we're going to get into the human age, which is going to be a lot where people are going to deal with things on more internal level and on a more spiritual level also.
I think it definitely has to do with, you know, the whole growth aspect of humans, and there are all kinds of indications that are coming up now that are showing that as data processing and information processing is the biggie right now, and the computer industry is so large, the human potential, human growth industry will be larger than that in a very, very short period of time. And I think that that does show the progression. You know, if you look back to the days of the small farm, and the family worked together as a unit because they needed to in order to be able to physically survive. And when the Depression came again, you know, different periods of our history have been kind of concentrated on certain aspects of our being. And Abraham Maslow has what he calls the hierarchy of growth, and he shows different levels that the average human being will go through, and it starts with having your physical needs met and then moving up into other needs until you get to that point. Actually, his is self-actualization is the top, but you reach those different levels where the self becomes more important into the picture.
I also think our society is going on pretty much that same
Right,
hierarchy.
I agree.
That there are going to be more higher level needs need to be incorporated into our society, into the inner workings of our school systems, the programs that government puts in place, and also into the family and into the individuals.
Well, and I think the people are demanding that. I mean, I don't think it's becoming an option anymore. I think it's something that that is the way people are living, and they're choosing to go about their life in a more positive way that works better for them. And in a sense, I think that also is what's going to dictate our longevity, because doing it the way we're doing it now isn't working. The stress is killing people. I mean, that is really what it comes down to. And there's all kind of studies out there now where they talk to employees of companies, and they're finding out that, as in the past, money is not number one. The latest one I saw, money was like 5th or 6th down the list, and there were a lot of things that were ahead of it. So I think people are starting to understand that a happy employee doing what they really enjoy and feel fulfilled doing is actually going to be more productive for the company.
Right.
And we really need to start allowing people to do what they want to do. And I think that in the end, it's really going to help us as a whole.
What are some ways that you feel that corporations could help develop their employees?
Listening to them would help a lot. I think that a lot of times employees are asked what they want or what works for them, but I'm not real sure it's always taken to heart. I think that whole communication idea is where a lot of it lays. Now, there are pieces that tie into that, because you have to be able to set an environment that says to that employee, it is okay to say, it is okay for you to tell me what you're thinking and what you want. This is a safe area. And that by doing it, I'm not going to, take your job away or demote you or something. So I think it's a combination of both listening to what they're saying and then also being able to act on it.
Yeah, I think there is a trend that we're picking up somewhat from the Japanese, where the employees do have a say in how they would like to see the company go, where the individual is being more, there's more respect given to the individual and what their comments and suggestions are. Instead of, management giving out orders, they are listening, they're looking within and realizing the value of the resource of their employees, and kind of, I call, giving them credit for having a brain.
Right.
And I think when corporations start to do that more, when they start to focus more on developing their human potential, their human resources, that I think that they're going to find a lot of problems that they're having with profitability, stability, are just going to go away, because when their people are at 100%, their companies are just going to take off and really be able to do good.
A lot of it just comes down to a control issue. That for so long it's been an idea of, well, like we were talking at break, that you've got this pie and it has to serve X number of people, and that's all there is. And people tend to think of it as, well, I've got to rush in there and get my little piece of the pie, and I don't care what happens.
Dog world,
yeah. And the truth of the matter is there's an abundance out there. There is more out there than we actually really need. And I think we have this tendency to rush around gathering all of this stuff up, and then at the end of the day we look at what we've got and we realize we really don't want half of it. That we've gathered stuff that really wasn't meaningful to us. And I think that's some of that where that control comes in, is that we're so busy trying to control the situation that we can't just sit back, relax, figure out what it is that we really want, and then go for that little piece of it. And that'll be more than we need.
I see fear coming into the picture there, where people get afraid of something, of not being able to get something, they are threatened, where their instincts come out to protect their own self-interest, and they haven't thought things out fully, where they kind of react on the fear, they go and grab that piece of pie or steal that piece of pie in some cases.
Yeah. I think fear and control go hand in hand. I
Right.
think that is what drives that control.
Right.
You know, and that is the emotion that is behind a lot of what goes on the negative side of our humanness.
I see fear as having a lot of power in our society, a lot of negative power. And a key for my personal development has been realizing where fear gets me and eats at me and causes
That's actually
that
the
stress.
power. The fear doesn't have a power. It's our giving into that fear and not recognizing,
Right.
you know, that we can do something about it is where I believe the power is. You know, or is where we give up our power. Yeah.
Well, I believe the fear has a power, like negativity has a power, but we can choose to have another type of power to come from a different base, and that's where it's enlightening to know that a person has that choice, that I have the
Right.
choice not to be afraid anymore, that I can be calm and not stress myself out, not die of a heart attack at 55, have to smoke cigarettes and drink every day, things like that, that I can come from a calm base, a peaceful base, and not be jarred, or if I get jarred, I can go back to that peaceful center
Yeah.
and not be led by fear and stress, tension, and worry and those things, but live a life of happiness, calmness, serenity, and joy, in a spiritual life too.
Yeah.
Getting into God personally for me has been something that has helped me in my journey, and it brought peace into my life. And I'm not going to do any Bible bashing here, but it has been an intricate part of my development.
Well, we are spiritual human beings. I mean, that is what we're all about. We're a spirit inside this physical body, and, you know, we're here to learn our lessons and advance ourselves, and I believe to have that happy, fun life. So I think it's a matter of staying connected with all those people, with all those pieces, and spirituality is definitely a piece that's there.
Yeah. A recent insight of mine in my spiritual development has been a feeling of connectedness to the universe, and
Right.
not just a separate alone part. I've tended to be a loner a lot. Now, as I'm developing and maturing, I'm feeling more, not all the time, but I'm becoming to feel more connected to the universe, connected to people, and feeling that as a source of strength. And instead of my tension or my fears or my nervousness being my source of energy.
Yeah. It's a lot easier in life if you know that you're not alone and that you do have that connection with other people. You know, it makes life a lot easier to go through it.
Also, I think as far as positive energy directs, or positive thoughts direct
Right.
physical energy,
That's a hard one to get out sometimes.
yeah, that when we get ourselves to stay in more of a positive path, and now this doesn't happen just right away. A person has to be self-aware and watch themselves, you know, every day, and you become more and more positive eventually over time.
Right.
But when
It's
we
like any
become-
habit, it develops over time.
Right. When we become more positive more of the time, we're going to propel ourselves into more positive situations. We're going to stay out of negative situations.
Right.
We're going to be less traumatic things are going to happen in our life, and the things that do happen aren't going to affect us as deeply. Some people can be depressed for weeks or months over something, and that is, you know, a person that's staying in something too long. Generally, something can happen to a person, and you can, unless it's really tragic, maybe feel sad about it for a couple of hours, you know, go through have an emotional process, but not stay in it.
That's true of, you know, of all of our human growth and potential. It's the same thing. It's figuring out where we are, analyzing whether or not that's where we want to be, feeling those emotions because they do exist and you can't deny them. And if you do try to deny them, you bottle them up and they just come out someplace else in a different manner.
Right.
But then the key is then moving on.
Right.
And that's what we were talking about earlier, too, is I think that is the whole key, is to go through the whole process and don't try to short-circuit any of it or get stuck in any one part of it either.
And knowing what the proper length is for an emotion to occur.
Some of it is
And-
having that connection with the serenity so that you can have the trust that you'll know when it's time to move on.
Yeah.
You know, there's
And
some of
not,
that in there.
beat a dead horse, so to say,
Right.
but deal with something, let yourself feel sad for a while or angry, whatever the emotion might be.
I think
and,
some of that
but not
beating the
repeat
dead
it.
horse or staying in that spot is a fear of where do I go now? You know.
And knowing where to go and
Next,
to be
right.
positive and not repeat those thoughts over in one's mind, but to get out of that and go on with life, involve yourself in something else, go to your job, read your book, go out with your friends, or
Learn some
talk,
new skills. Yeah.
do something. But a lot of times people will isolate themselves, work a problem over in their mind, become depressed, anxious, fearful, all those things, and it doesn't need to be that way. So,
Well, they're not making use of that wonderful energy that we have there and that connectedness with other people. It's a wonderful resource. Why not use it? Yeah.
right. The connectedness also, I know that once you start to stay on a positive path, that you're more aware of when you get off of that path.
Definitely.
So then you can see that, oops, this is not good, it's been this way for too long, I need to get onto something else. And that really helps maintain the serenity levels.
Sure does.
Okay, well, let's go to our next PSA, and we'll come back in a few minutes.
Mental Health Minute. Ever feel lonely? I'm sure all of us have. But if chronic loneliness seems to be a part of your life, it's time to do something about it. That's our mental health topic today. I'll have more in a moment. Today on Mental Health Minute, our subject is loneliness. We don't have to be alone to feel lonely. We can feel lonely in a crowd, in our marriage and family life, when we're with friends. Being with people is no guarantee of avoiding feelings of loneliness. The root cause of loneliness is often just being too much into ourselves, into wanting to have someone else take care of us. We need to learn to reach out, to make a contribution to the development of human community through assisting others, particularly those who have a genuine need of assistance, offering words of love and encouragement, helping where help is needed, to give as well as take. Let's make an honest effort to reach out and help. When we do, we'll improve our mental health and become a lot less lonely. This is Dewey Renner. Next on Mental Health Minute, we're going to talk about anger. Join us then.
Mark Sanchez, and welcome back to Cititalk. Cititalk's a show in which in future episodes we're going to be dealing with issues of concern to men. We're going to be talking about spiritual issues from Christianity to Native American spirituality. We'll talk about relevant social and political happenings, and also I'm going to deal with a lot of things in the human development area. Today in that area we have Ellen Oestricher, who is an editor and publisher of a newspaper called Stepping Up. Stepping Up deals a lot with human potential development and spiritual growth also. And we've been talking a lot about self-talk, realizing one's limiting thoughts and how to deal with those. Also, I think kind of next in the process here, I feel a need to talk about relaxation, maybe some meditation. I've always found that calming relaxation techniques and centering meditation prepares oneself to lead a more relaxed life and be in a centered come from a centered perspective, where a person can then look inside, find out and feel what they truly want to do, and be led by their inner longings and urgings, and find out what they really want to do.
That's where our answers really are. I mean, when it comes down to it, nobody knows what is best for ourselves better than ourselves. And I think we've lost touch with that over the years because we've been directed from everything external and everything outside of us. You know, everybody's always telling us who we are, what we should do, how we should act. And the truth of the matter is we know best what is best for ourselves inside. And I agree with you 100% when you talk about the idea of getting quiet and calm, because the only way that we can really get rid of all of this external noise is to get centered and calm so that we can come inside and hear that voice that is inside of us.
Right.
And that is where it's all at.
And then when a person finds out what it is, where they're being led, then was a person, do you focus, visualize? Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Well, when I think of that whole creative process, there's so many elements to it. You definitely have to be clear on what it is that you really want. I know a lot of the talks and workshops that I've done, that's been one of my questions. If you could have absolutely anything you want, remove all limitations, what is it that you'd want? And it's like I immediately get arguments from people trying to put limitations on. Well, you know, what do I have an unlimited amount of money? Can I, you know, assume that I have a degree? And they always want to put limitations back onto it. And I think we need to, again, remove the limitations so that we're open and then say, what is it that I really want? And as you were saying, I think we have to get centered and calm down in order to get in touch with that piece of us that really knows what it is that we do want.
Right. And not always on the big major decisions in life only, but also in smaller hour by hour, minute by minute decisions. When a person finds himself getting worked up and full of tension and stress, to take a little time, take a deep breath, relax. If they're into meditation, maybe set aside some time for meditation, but to get centered and come from a calm perspective instead of a hurried, stressful perspective, then things are going to happen a lot more smoother, and they're going to be physically, mentally in a lot better shape. People have more energy, be happier.
It's the old work smarter, not work harder. I mean, when it comes down to it, because when we're working smarter, we're working because we're being led by that internal voice, that guidance, whatever you want to call it. And everybody's got their different feeling for what that is, whether it's a higher power or God or intuition or universal intelligence, whatever you want to call it, we all have it. It goes back to that being connected with the universe and all things and all people in the universe being connected. And when we get in touch with that, we operate from a whole different level. It's like we have this other level that's out there that we don't even tap into and we don't even use. We're doing everything on a physical plane instead of getting into that other aspect of our humanness. And when we can get ourselves calmed down, and there's got to be millions of different techniques that people use to do that. You know, there are whole classes on how to calm yourself down, and like you say, meditation in and of itself has become an area where a lot of people are doing work. Everything from staring at a candle and then closing your eyes and trying to keep that flame still in your mind's eye, to there's mantras, there's little, some people will even just say go 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 3, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4. You have to do something that is somewhat monotonous to calm the brain down and get it to kind of shut down and go away. In fact, that is even a way that a lot of people will do it. Will just try to mentally tell themselves, I don't want to hear any of this right now, I just want to be quiet. If you try it, it's really difficult to get your brain to stop talking to you and doing all this activity.
Practice I've been learning about is called centering prayer, and that comes from Christian roots thousands of years ago. And I think a lot of people in our society have gone to Eastern types of meditation and things like that. Some of the spiritual leaders in Catholicism, Lutheranism, American Christianity, have kind of uncovered and brought out of the monasteries some techniques, centering prayer, contemplative prayer, and various things that go with that lifestyle and practice, and have started bringing that down through the ranks, the priests, nuns, into the community, to the individual, and there's various retreats and things that are available. But where it's a meditation, a calming process where one just sits and is still, and in that consciousness, or in the presence of God, however anybody may feel comfortable defining that.
Mm-hmm.
But from that centered perspective comes a calmness and an awareness that enables people to lead a more productive, a more powerful life,
Mm-hmm.
Be more powerful themselves, and that in a positive sense too.
Well, you're making use of everything that you have available when you do
Right.
that. It's taking into effect that wholeness that we are, and not just operating on one of our levels, but using everything. Yeah, and when you said that about bringing it up from the Christian religions, I think that just, to me, makes a statement that the Eastern religions or philosophies were probably where more of the meditation was focused on. But as in everything that exists in this world, there isn't just one way to do it. And like you mentioned, with the Christians are now, finding ways that they feel are best for meditating. The American Indians have another. I mean, there are
Right.
ways, and to me that says then maybe that's another tool that we haven't been using as much as we should have.
I've also learned in the spiritual circles with Christians, Native Americans, even Buddhists, that everybody is looking at each other's, the high points of their
Right.
brand of religion,
Yeah.
and learning from each other. The separatism there is decreasing. The walls
Yes.
are coming down,
And
not
isn't
only
it
the
wonderful
Berlin
to
Wall.
see?
And I think that people are starting to come together and with a respect for other people's wisdom. And I think that this is truly going to become a more global society, especially in the area of spirituality, that people are going to come to trust and respect other nations, religions, and people, individuals, on an individual
Yeah.
level. And I think that we're going to be able to learn a lot more from all the people in the world, from the small native tribes to the to
Yeah.
the simplistic tribal living, up to the
We've been given all these resources and all these different people. Why don't we take advantage of it? That's what it
Right.
really comes
Right.
down to, is we're here to help each other. And it's just a matter of us getting away from that fear and not trying to control the situation,
Right.
and allowing that help to come in and
Right.
being open to it.
and trust is
Yeah.
a factor there.
Yeah.
Where
And using all the pieces, like you were talking earlier, you had mentioned the word visualization, and I think that's another aspect that is just now becoming big in our society, one of the yuppie words, or whatever you want to refer to it as. And visualization is a powerful thing. I mean, now you're into using some of that mental energy as well as your physical energy. There's a study that I just love where they had studied basketball players, and they took 150 basketball players and broke them into 3 different groups, and they had them start out by everybody doing free throws, and tested each group to see how they did. And then they had them go away, and they said, this group, we want you to just continue to practice every day. This group, don't do anything. And then the third group, they had them just visualize themselves successfully completing these free throws. And after a period of time, they had them come back in, and they redid the testing. And what they found out was that the people that were out there using all that energy and the physical energy and their sweat and out there working hard every day had improved by 25%. And the people that didn't do anything during that period of time stayed pretty much the same. They weren't gone or away from it long enough to have them lose any of their skills. But the part that got me was that group that they sent out to just visualize, they had a 24% improvement. Now that's almost as good as the guys that were doing the actual physical work out there. And when I heard that study, I thought to become 1% difference is phenomenal. But then I thought, what happens if you put the two of them together? If you do the visualization plus the physical side of it, you got a dynamite combination.
Right. It sounds to me real similar to what I've been told in school. In order to put something into the long-term memory banks, so to say, that you need to repeat, read
Yeah.
over whatever the material is like 3 times. It sounds like this is kind of etching a path towards your goal, towards making a well-worn path. So there is a direction that'll be taken, a clear-cut direction that a person visualizes whatever they're looking for, and whatever blocks may be thrown up by the mind, the self-doubt, those kind of self-talk things,
Right.
have been worked through, then through the visualizing process, for me, that's when a lot of things come up. When I try to visualize something, I'll get some self-doubts, and I have to deal with those. And once that's dealt with, then my vision is clear and focused, and I am more able to go just straight down onto that.
And that, interestingly enough, was one of the things that they told the group that was doing the visualizing to do, is they said, when you're visualizing it, visualize yourself correcting any errors that you make. So that they said, visualize yourself successfully making those free throws. So they acknowledged the fact that because of those old tapes, because of the process that the people had been through, that when they tried to visualize themselves doing this, they may not be able to do it right offhand. And that goes back to that, what we were talking about earlier, that we have to sort of retrain ourselves. We have to take those habits and do something different until that becomes so comfortable to us that it becomes our new habit.
Right. I also think that there's a continuing to train. One thing I learned from my parents was we have to, throughout our lives, continue to learn and develop ourselves and just build on what we have. And I think that these types of things are a valuable tool for people in their self-development to make them a more whole and more effective person. And it's very, very interesting. Do you have more to add about visualization?
Well, one of the things that I recall when I had taken a course where one of the pieces of that course was actually teaching you how to meditate and visualize. And one of the things that all of a sudden clicked with me and that I realized was, and it sounds real simple as I say it, but not everybody visualizes the same way. And I remember we were stretched out on the floor, and they were doing what they call a guided meditation, where you're quiet and your eyes are closed and somebody is speaking a scene to you and you're supposed to be visualizing the scene. And he said, now visualize this cloud. And I'm laying there trying to get this picture of this cloud, and there's no way that this cloud is forming. And next thing I know, he's saying, now visualize yourself on top of this cloud.
Oh, yeah.
And I can't even get the cloud, and yet he's trying to get me to get myself on top of it.
Right.
So part of it was a learning process and figuring out how to do that. The other part was a recognition that I don't visualize in 35 millimeter color pictures, and not everybody does. What I found out is most of my visualizations are actually in symbols. For some other people, when I started actually teaching the course and getting more involved, I found out that other people visualize in words.
Right.
And to some extent, I think people can even visualize in thoughts. So I think sometimes people are turned off by a particular category like meditation, visualization, something like that, because again, they limited themselves in that they have come up with a preconceived way of how that is supposed to happen. So for me, it was real important to know however it happens for me is right. And I need to trust in that.
Yeah. And sometimes persons aren't necessarily limited by the way they do things, but people have tendencies towards being inspired by certain ways of doing it, by a visual picture or by a word, and that evokes their thought process or their creative energies. We studied that a little bit in in a class at school. And some people just have tendencies towards a certain way of doing things. And whatever a person finds, identifies as their way, be comfortable with that. And just go with that and develop that, because that's the way you are, and there's nothing good or bad about it. That's just how you are. And
we've known for a long time that some people are visual, others are audio. I mean, why should it be so different that we can be different with our physical way of operating? Doesn't it make sense that we would also be different in our mental, way of working too? So for me, that was a bit of an eye-opener, because I always had this concept that if I'm meditating, I should be able to float off into some other plane, and if I'm visualizing, I should, and that's a word that I always keys in for me anyway, the shooting yourself to death, but that I should be able to see it in pictures, and that isn't how it always is.
Now, as far as, we'll say, a process, and this is, I hope to stay away from the shoulds, but when a person has calmed themselves down, and what would be the next step there that might be helpful into attaining their goal or finding, in the focusing process and the visualizing process?
Everyone again has their own way of going about that, and there is no set way. I think that for me, one of the key things is once I can attain that calm state, what's going to happen then is I'm going to get my best answers. So if I can, actually what I try to do is determine what it is that I'm working on at that time and ask myself a question. You know, what is it that, you know, what problem or issue am I working on right now that I'd like an answer for? Pose that question to myself. Then do some relaxation techniques, some calming techniques, and get into more of a meditative state. And then at that point, your brain remembers that question that you had originally asked. And you will get an answer, which that is another area that I realized when that answer comes differs for different people. You know, I might get it during that time when I'm sitting there trying to meditate on it. I may get it when I'm driving to meet with a client. I may get it and not even know I got it. You know, just act in a particular way and then later go, oh, geez, I did that just right. And that's another thing, is that affirmation, that recognition that later on that you can say, that was a good move. And I realized I was responsible for it. There was something that I did, even though I may not be able to identify exactly when it occurred. But there was something that I did that helped me get there.
So it's kind of like a person cutting a path through the jungle.
Yeah.
You made the path there, and
sometimes you made a turn that you didn't even know why you did it, but later on you realized it was the right turn.
Right. Okay. This has been a very interesting discussion we've had here. I'm sure we have a few other shows that we can do later on, which we do have scheduled, and I'm really looking forward to that when we have you back. Next on our on Cititalk, I'm going to be having a few people from the Domestic Abuse Project, and they also represent an organization called Brother Peace. We're going to be talking about domestic abuse and various ways of dealing with that situation. We're also going to have another gentleman from the Minneapolis Men's Center, and hopefully we'll be able to show some insights into problems of domestic abuse, provide some alternatives for men that might find them getting close to a situation like that and hopefully avoiding it. And I also have some other shows planned, as I mentioned before, dealing with spirituality. Hopefully these will be an interest to the people. And again, we'll be having Ellen back for some more shows also. Ellen, I thank you for being here. This has been a great talk. And thanks for watching Cititalk. Once again, I'm Mark Sanchez, your host, and hopefully you'll see some other shows that we do. We're going to have some real interesting subjects. And if you'd like to inquire any more about the guests that I have on my show, preceding this statement, there will be an address, phone number that you can write to, and I'll give you more information about Ellen and things, her newspaper and such. And thanks for your time, and I'll see you next week. Thank you. Hi, my name is Mark Sanchez. Welcome to Cititalk. Today I have a gentleman, Bill Wier, who is a host and producer of a show called Friends of Main Street. And we'll talk a little bit about that, about Minnesota politics, and various other subjects. Bill, thanks for being on the show.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here, Mark. I've heard good things about your show getting started, and I'm honored to be your guest.
Okay, great. Well, first, could you tell us a little about Friends of Main Street and how long it's been on the air, those sort of...
Well, our Friends of Main Street half-hour program, weekly program started with Congressman Bill Frenzel as our first guest. We went on location directly to his office in Bloomington, and he very kindly gave us a good half hour of discussion of some of the burning issues of our time to help his constituents and others here in Minnesota understand what has to be done so that we can reclaim government and not let the government be taken over by permanent politicians.
Okay. And how long ago was that?
Oh, that was just a year and a half ago. We started in July of 1989, and we've been rolling every week since.
All right. Well, that brings up an issue, permanent politicians. There's an organization that you're familiar with. You've done a show with them, I believe.
Yes, the Committee Opposed to Permanent Politicians. They sometimes say, call the cops. C-O-P-P. They're feeling that here in America we have too many permanent politicians that are becoming a kind of ruling elite. And I wanted to give them the opportunity to put their story before the people of America in a program that is devoted exclusively to the Committee Opposed to Permanent Politicians. And the co-chairman, as well as Don Larson, a member of the group who publishes the business newsletter here in Minnesota, appeared on the program.
Okay.
Well, in fact, anytime you're ready, we can see a clip from that. Is now convenient, or?
Sure. Why don't we roll the tape and discuss that after we see it? Okay.
Hi, I'm Bill Wier of Main Street Majority, and it's my pleasure today to offer you a special program on the Committee Opposed to Permanent Politicians. I have two distinguished guests here today. Don Larson, well known to many of us as the publisher and editor of Don Larson's business newsletter, this publication that many of us subscribe to, and Dennis Stridd, an attorney in Bloomington, Minnesota, who is co-chairman of the Committee Opposed to Permanent Politicians. Dennis, you told me you formed this organization in January of 1990 and had given some thought to this for perhaps a year. What started you thinking about forming such a committee opposed to permanent politicians?
Well, the beginning of this committee really started with casual conversation, social conversation, if you might. Some friends of mine and I were discussing the 1988 elections and the results in that election. And it was brought to my attention that roughly 98% of Congress had been reelected in that election. And I was aware of the tremendous amount of money that had been spent by incumbents and those trying to unseat the incumbents. And it got me thinking about the whole panorama of our election process and the money spent for it and what was going on in Congress. Same time, over the course of that year, we were reading in the newspaper about a variety of scandals that were occurring amongst congressmen. We were reading about politicians who had been in Congress for many, many, many years, spent most of their life in Congress. And it seemed to me that perhaps maybe an alternative way of dealing with the electorate and with the elected politician might help our country. And from that beginning, we started investigating and exploring until we finally culminated in the organization that we created.
So it's basically concerned citizens, you and a number of others, that have formed this committee, and that's now reaching out to invite others to take part.
That's right.
Across the country.
That's right. We are
And
we're working here locally and also working across the country to try and gain membership so that we can accomplish our goals.
And during our program, our viewers can see their phone number on the screen for COP, the Committee Opposed to Permanent Politicians, and with an invitation to call. Anytime, what is it, Monday through Friday?
Anytime, Monday through Friday.
Even Saturday and Sunday?
No.
Just Monday through Friday.
Monday through Friday.
Business hours.
Oh, it's very interesting, Bill. That seems to be a real valid concern of a lot of people. I know that a lot of people I've talked to are very angry about the ruling elite, it seems, politicians and corporations, business owners that influence the governmental decisions have been in control for so long, control so much of everybody's lives, that the people are just they're sick of it. They're fed up with it, and but yet there's a feeling of powerlessness there. Also, that we're a country that's supposed to have the power ourselves, but yet we really, in effect, have none. It seems like to some.
I'll disagree with you that we have none.
I'd say there's the potential to have it. I'm saying a lot of people feel like they have none.
Mm-hmm.
You're right. I think people can get that if they channel that energy in the right way, or there are steps to be taken. But a lot of people nonetheless feel that way, that they have no power, that there's no why vote, because there's nobody up there that they intended to have up there in the first place. Some PACs or somebody got them into the office, and then
I think this frustration comes, Mark, from people not understanding enough of how our system of government works.
Mm-hmm.
The basic choice that we have to make as part of the sovereign electorate here in America is not to abdicate, to use the power that we have. We're part of a very, very precious electorate.
How can we use it, Bill? What can we do?
Well, there's first of all, I think, to look at the system of government and how it operates. There's basically, throughout America's history, we've had two parties usually, occasionally a third party that will come in for a while to be a corrective on those other two. But basic choice I've found is that you have to choose one party or the other to be active in. And the one that appears to be closest to your values, or where you can bring about the kind of correctives. Now, I used to be active in the Democratic Party. I was a candidate for state representative in Iowa when I lived there, because I saw that that was the party closest to my values and the needs of the people as I saw them at that time. But here in Minnesota, after having served as chairman of DFL Senate District 65 with my state senator Nick Coleman, and served as chairman of the Resolutions Committee, or the Platform Committee, for another Senate district in Roseville, I came to realize that the Democrat Farmer Labor Party here in Minnesota is dominated by permanent politicians, people who run labor unions for the most part. And I had to change parties in order to restore a citizen governing for our state. And so I've looked into just how to bring this about. I've been elected now, not just precinct chairman in my own precinct, a little area of about 1,500 voters, but also now the convention of the 3rd Congressional District, Congressman Bill Frenzel's district, now Senator Jim Ramstad's district, since he was elected, I'm sure, on November 6th. I'm the vice chairman for communications on that, and this is what led me into creating the television program Friends of Main Street. And I'm finding there the opportunity to help my fellow citizens, as well as myself, learn what the real issues are and how best to resolve them through activity in our political process.
How about for people that aren't going to run for a political office on a local level? How can we, I personally feel that the citizens need more power in their vote, that it seems that the vote doesn't count for much. The citizens aren't allowed to bring politicians into office and to develop people that we feel are good candidates. It's just people that decide they want to be a politician, go become to be a politician, and run for various offices, become experienced. But the public doesn't have that much of a choice. It's kind of whoever is...
But we do. I'd like to disagree with you. This American system of government is far more open than most people realize. So that if you will just show up, first of all, at the precinct caucus,
Yes, that's
every
very
2
crucial.
years in February.
And nobody, that's what a lot of our public doesn't realize. That's a very important aspect of the political system here that is vastly underused, almost totally underused by the general public. They don't realize that that is where the people that are going to be on the ballots, that's where it's determined that...
That's the crucial time for choosing who will be your delegates to go on to higher levels of conventions, ultimately to endorse a candidate for each of the public offices.
So what I was just talking about, the way to cure that or to get past that is to get into those precinct caucuses and
That's right.
make sure we get the right people in there.
So it's crucial to be there on that last Tuesday, typically the last Tuesday of February, every second year, in an election year. And my neighbors get together, about 100 of us out of the 1,500 possible voters, and I felt good about being able to have a hand in making sure that a majority of the people there voted for the presidential candidate that I preferred back in February of 1988. Now, it turned out my candidate dropped out of the race, and I went on, though, to realize that this was a party that was truly committed to citizen activism and the kind of clean politics that allowed for our country to have a truly free enterprise economy instead of moving farther and farther towards socialism. And I think one of the reasons that a lot of us in our day have not understood how to take an active part with some power in the political process is that most of us have only been exposed to socialized education, government-based education in the public schools. You go to a private school, and I think you will learn more about how to take an active role in the political process. But because it's tax money that is supporting our public schools, I think the administrators, the teachers, become wary of really telling it like it is about the political process. And all too many of us graduate from those schools not knowing how to use our power in the political process.
I greatly agree that the citizens, the people, the public, need to know how to best utilize our system. We need to be trained, educated as how to do that, get more involved. There's so many people that aren't involved, and everybody is frustrated and complains about the way things are. There is a way to remedy that, and that's to get involved, to know the politicians. Maybe if you know if there's somebody that is active and they think might be good for a political candidate, try and get that person to run. You know, things like that.
That's what happened to me last June. A friend called me up and said, "Bill, there's a man who's going to get elected as Suburban Hennepin Parks Commissioner that we don't think truly represents the people of Golden Valley, St. Louis Park, and Edina. Would you run?" And so all of a sudden I had a Bill Wier volunteer committee and people contributing money to it and helping me file, and things started rolling. I'm willing to serve. There's no big income or power that comes from it, except being one vote on a 7-member commission deciding how to spend $10.5 million of the taxpayers' money every year.
And the parks are a valuable asset to Minnesota. That's what
one of the things that attracted me here in the first place. Yes,
is the natural environment of our state. Our parks.
And a very precious part of helping us maintain our good mental as well as physical health, I think. To be able to get out into beauty of nature. And
To get that balance, yeah.
I've taken part in the Minnesota Orienteering Club that is a regular user of the Hennepin Parks as well as other parks throughout the Twin City area, going out with my detailed terrain map and my compass and finding my way around the trails that my fellow club members have laid out secretly the night before.
Oh, orienteering. Is that what you called it?
Yes, orienteering. It's a sport
Orienteering.
that originated in Scandinavia
Uh-huh.
and is taught even in the public schools there, so that kids throughout Scandinavia learn how to use the map and terrain maps and compasses to find their way around. And it gives a degree of, a sense of, I think, feeling at ease, regardless of what unfamiliar surroundings you might find yourself in.
Well, that sounds very good. Reminds me of some things we did in Boy Scouts years ago. Great. What could you go over again the political offices? What political experience you've had?
Oh, well, since we're recording this before the election, I don't know whether I'm going to be elected a Hennepin Parks Commissioner.
True.
But I am Vice Chairman of the 3rd Congressional District Independent Republican Party, where I have a special responsibility on communications. And that's where my role as producer, or co-producer, I should say, of the Friends of Main Street weekly public affairs program originated.
Okay, well, we've got about 1 minute left before our PSA here. What would you like to talk about in the next upcoming segments here? Okay.
But I'd like you also to hear from Congressman Newt Gingrich,
Okay.
talking to all of us American citizens about our responsibilities.
Great. Okay. This reminds me of an organization too I heard of in it's out of Utah. I can't Salt Lake City. I can't. It's something like the Center for Constitutional Studies that is teaching people how to the basic fundamentals of the Constitution and how our society was originally set up by the founding fathers, and some really good things I think that might be starting to happen here by shows like yours, other people in the country that are working towards making our political system a little bit better.
Let's talk about that.
Great. Okay. Thanks a lot. And again, this is City Talk. My name is Mark Sanchez. I invite you to call my phone number at 879-4822 or write into P.O. Box 50303, Minneapolis 55405, with any questions, comments you may have about the show. Thanks a lot. We'll be back in just a minute.
Mental Health Minute. Ever feel lonely? I'm sure all of us have. But if chronic loneliness seems to be a part of your life, it's time to do something about it. That's our mental health topic today. I'll have more in a moment. Today on Mental Health Minute, our subject is loneliness. We don't have to be alone to feel lonely. We can feel lonely in a crowd, in our marriage and family life, when we're with friends. Being with people is no guarantee of avoiding feelings of loneliness. The root cause of loneliness is often just being too much into ourselves, into wanting to have someone else take care of us. We need to learn to reach out, to make a contribution to the development of human community through assisting others, particularly those who have a genuine need of assistance, offering words of love and encouragement, helping where help is needed, to give as well as take. Let's make an honest effort to reach out and help. When we do, we'll improve our mental health and become a lot less lonely. This is Dewey Renner. Next on Mental Health Minute, we're going to talk about anger. Join us then.
Hi, Mark Sanchez. Welcome back to City Talk. Again, my guest is Bill Wier, and we're talking about politics in America and Minnesota. We've got a tape now that we're going to listen to, a gentleman named Newt Gingrich.
Oh, Congressman Newt Gingrich.
All right.
He's been chosen by the fellow members of the House minority group as their whip. That is the one who is responsible for keeping them in line, so to speak, making sure they know how to vote.
They've only got one man doing that?
Oh,
Don't they need more?
but he's more important. He's the general chairman of GOPAC, the Grassroots Organization Political Action Committee, and it's through the tapes that I've been receiving like this now for many years that I've come to feel that I'm part of the farm team, as they call them, the group of citizens that are getting ready to see where we can serve in public office. We find that there are a great many people that are upset with government, and Newt here lays out some of the things he's finding.
Great. Is there any way that the general public can get a hold of information along those same lines?
Oh, well, first of all, give me a call, or just ask for the GOPAC or American Citizens Television 800 number by calling information.
Or they could call Cititalk at 879-4822, and I'll be glad to get that information to you also. And let's listen to the tape now.
They get reinvested. I mean, I would argue that the average American gets about what they deserve in government. They don't pay any attention to it, they don't study it, they don't contribute to it, they don't work at it. And, you know, most people spend far more hours at physical maintenance or at their favorite hobby than they do at changing their government. So the machinery just keeps drifting forward and decaying. And that's going to keep happening until the American people get so angry that, you know, I'll give you one example. I tell almost every group I talk to that don't tell me you're proud of our young men and women in Saudi Arabia, but you're not registered to vote. And don't tell me that you don't vote, but you think you're a citizen. If you don't vote, you're an inhabitant.
That's right.
Citizens vote. Now, until we reestablish, it's just like the discipline of learning how to read or the discipline of learning to go to work. I mean, we got to reestablish the discipline of citizenship. That's what civilization's all about, is taking young barbarians and getting them to behave in different ways. You know, and what we've done for 2 generations, we've been engaged in this cute debate, including sitcoms, in which we debate whether the barbarians have better answers. You know, so if a 7-year-old says, I really don't want to read, we say, well, let's promote him anyway, because, you know, they'll be socially maladjusted if we slam them in the head and say, you're going to learn how to read, this is NF, you have failed, your parents have to come in. If we did that to them, they'd be traumatized, so instead let's them stay illiterate. Well, what happens is around 18, when they're still illiterate, they can't get a job. Then they rob you. You know, then if you're a conservative, you want to lock them up, and if you're a liberal, you say it's terrible that society has failed them. Usually if you're the one who's been robbed, you become more conservative, so you're more into the lockup school. You know, but it's nuts. So I'd come back and say to you, when you get mad, I'll tell you, when you get mad enough that you spend as much time and as much money on politics as you do on your favorite hobby, as a group, collectively, you'll change the government in a matter of 2 years.
That's my point, too. Politics has become my hobby. I don't want to be called a politician in the derogatory sense of the word, unless you'll preface it with the word citizen politician. I want to end the ruling elite status that is some of our congressmen have attained, all too many of them serving there for all too many years, and let this be a true democracy again that elects its representatives.
Or you could say self-serving there for too many years.
All too many are self-serving, yes.
I feel personally, and I know a lot of people do, that it seems that a lot of our politicians are self-serving. They're totally out of touch with real American life. They've lived in Washington for so long that they don't know what it's like to be a citizen anymore, and they tend to serve the people that court them, the PACs and other lobbyists, and it's really unfortunate that these people are supposed to be serving us, the public, not those people.
Yeah.
And themselves.
The members of Congress have built in at least $1 million worth of advantage to the incumbent, and so that we no longer have really a Democrat or Republican Party ruling Congress. It's the incumbent party. The incumbents have this multi-million-dollar advantage in getting themselves reelected, and we've got to end that. And that's why I'm glad to see my friends in the committee opposed to permanent politicians trying to help us think our way through and organize our way through to solving this kind of problem, to restore the health of America.
Okay. And what other organizations do you see nationally that are trying to do this? Are there more?
Well, yes, I'm particularly impressed with American Citizens Television. They have an 800 number that our listeners can find to learn more about how they can take part in creating the kind of citizen education through our public access channels that will help empower more people to solve problems. They recently did a program, for example, on the importance of choice in education. And it helped, I think, a number of citizens across the country to learn how we've done it here in Minnesota, what's happening in other states, too, where the opportunity to choose the school that you go to is finally creating the competitive situation to improve our socialized education.
Great. Well, it seems a lot then is in the educating of the public, our children, and our
and re-educating our adults.
and ourselves too. There's
I put on a course in community education called See How They Run, a course developed by the United States Chamber of Commerce to help citizens see how they can plug into political campaigns and help their friend win. And it's quite an education into how to cope with the campaign process and be a successful part of choosing the leaders that you want in office.
I wish that there was something, an unbiased report that was made on politicians, their voting records, things like that, that was easily accessible, and there was some sort of forum for people who are new politicians that are just running, that better platforms for them to give their ideas and to speak, that so they don't need to have millions of dollars behind them. That
Exactly.
So the public can see. It's not all the public's fault either, because we just don't have that information to us, and the only information we get is some glitzy commercial that's on 3 weeks before the election. I mean,
That's
nobody
why I'm
believes
working
anyway.
now, not only through the weekly TV program called Friends of Main Street, but recently, since I've been denied public access because I'm a legally qualified candidate, I've had to form what's called Citizens or Candidates Access Rights Project, CARP
Okay.
for short.
Okay.
Because
It's a Minnesota organization.
we who are going to be taking part in this find fault with the rules that now deny the rights of candidates for public office to cable TV access channel time, at least in the Southwest Suburban Cable Commission's area.
I understand your problem there. That's an unfortunate situation that happened.
I want to thank you for attending the hearing and speaking up on behalf of the First Amendment and the rights of all of us to be heard on public access.
Well, I believe in public access, and I hope more people watch it and also utilize it too. It's a great means of power for the average citizen. And with that, we're going to wrap up this edition of City Talk. Thanks, Bill, for being on the show.
Pleasure to be with you, Mark.
And my name's Mark Sanchez. Welcome to City Talk. I welcome you to come watch us again. I'd also like, if you have any questions or comments about the show, feel free to call 879-4822 or write City Talk at P.O. Box 50303, Minneapolis 55405. And I'd love to hear what you have to say. And once again, thanks, Bill, and we'll see you next time.
Great pleasure.